Well, howdy there folks, and welcome into this video. If you are a loyal watcher of my channels, you know when it's a whiteboard video, it's about to be a straight gem dropper. And if you never really watched my videos, welcome in. And where the heck have you been? Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Today, we're gonna talk about how to make $10,000 in the stock market. And today's gonna be a straight gem dropper. Today's gonna be a straight educational video where I run you through some things, okay? And in this video, I'm gonna give you a little psychology related things, okay, that you need to start making $10,000 as fast as possible in the stock market, as well as I'm going to give you some tactics on how you can reach a level like that where you start making $10,000 consistently in the stock market. So hope you guys really enjoyed today's video. As always, all I ask in return is that you smash that thumbs up button, and that is literally it, guys. I appreciate you being here as always. If you want to learn more about my private stock group, the private Discord chat, the coaches, anything like that, check out the first pinned comment down there, guys. Alrighty, let's get into this, okay? So first off here, if you want to make $10,000 in the stock market, let's say in a year, okay? Let's say over the course of next year, you want to make $10,000, okay? First thing I'll tell you is that it's definitely an achievable goal, okay? So first thing we got to figure out, how much is that per day, right? Well, you can't divide it by 365 days because unless you're new to the stock market or something like that, you understand that the stock market is not open 365 days a year. The stock market is usually open about 253 days a year, okay? Trading days, right? And so you need to make on average $39.50 per day. Okay, that's on average. It doesn't mean you have to make that every single day consistently, but over the course of a year, you have to make $39.50 in profit per day, right? And as numbers get larger and larger, right, compounding starts to take it into account, and that can actually be something that helps you out tremendously in reaching a goal like that, where you're consistently, you know, $39.50 per day on average over time, okay? And if you do that, you will make $10,000 over the course of the year, okay? And you made $10,000 profit. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing, all right? Now, if you want to do that, let's say you want to amp up the time a little bit. You say, I don't want to do that over the year. I want to make $10,000 in 6 months, okay? Well, if you want to do that, then you need to make on average $79 per day on average, okay? Let's say you want to amp up that time even more and you want to do it in 3 months, okay? Well, if you want to do it in 3 months, you need to make $158 per trading day on average, okay? Now, when I break it down like that, I would say this definitely seems like an achievable goal, okay? I mean, you know, nowadays for me in the stock market, right? I've been doing this since 2008, 2009, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of success in the market, a lot of success just in general, right? And save a lot of money, invest a lot of money, take those gains, reinvest. I mean, nowadays I have days when I'm up or down $250,000 to $500,000, right? And so I see these numbers like $79 per day, $158 per day, and I can tell you it is definitely achievable, right? You know, this is definitely something that is possible. There's two things that are going to be very, very important if you want to reach something like this, okay? One is you got to understand the more money, the easier it's going to be to make $10,000 over the course of whether it be 3 months, 6 months, or a year, okay? The more money you have, the better off you're going to be, right? The less money you have, the harder it's going to be. Imagine you're starting, let's say all you have to put in your account, right, is $100. Okay, now we're talking about that is a steep challenge to make $100 into $10,000 profit. Now we're talking about that is going to be really, really difficult, right? And so you got to admit, money is going to be very, very important to you reaching this goal where you're making $10,000 plus per year or per 3 months or per 6 months, right? Also, what is going to be very, very important is how much do you get for gains. This is going to be very, very key. If you are getting extraordinary gains, okay, now we can talk about that $10,000 very, very quickly, right? If you're getting just okay gains, we're talking about it's going to take a little longer. You know, if you can't even beat the market, okay, now we're talking about you got to spread it out even more, okay? These are the two most important factors that you have to think about as a stock market investor. The amount of money you have invested in stocks, and what sort of gains can you get from those stocks. So those are the two most important factors in the stock market to determining success. What type of rate of return do you have? How much money do you have, right? If Warren Buffett has $100 billion, let's say for instance, right? I mean, I could have all the best stocks in the world, but me as a guy that, you know, might be worth like, let's say 8 figures, I am nothing compared to Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett in 1 second can make more money than I make in an entire year just being in some dividend stock, right? Because he's got so much money in the market that he can just, I could have all these stocks triple up and quadruple up. It means nothing compared to him, right? Because he has so much money in the market. But those gains are important, and when you start to compound those gains along with the money, that's when things really start flowing in. You can start hitting levels like you're making $10,000 consistently from the stock market, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about this for a moment here, right? So let's say you were thinking about investing in dividend stocks. If you don't know what a dividend stock is, it's essentially a stock that will pay you out usually every 3 months. They will credit to your brokerage account and pay you out for just holding that stock essentially. And you get part of the profits as shareholder of that company. Not all stocks do that, but there's a lot of them out there. You could always Google something like dividend stocks, something like that. You'll see a ton of them come up there for you, okay? So in order to make this $10,000 per year just off dividends, we're not talking about taking profits from stocks. We're not talking about you cashing out on a stock and you made a big profit or something like that. If you just get a stock that has a 4% dividend yield, right? Which a 4% dividend yield is a very good, strong dividend yield, okay? I mean, you're not gonna find a ton of stocks out there that have 4%, but there's definitely some good stocks out there that yield 4% or a little more than 4%. By the way, in terms of dividend yield, anybody that's newer to the stock market, be very cautious if you see dividend yields over 6%. Over 6%, bells should go off in your head and you should say, something's fishy here, okay? Maybe it's not. Maybe this is like a REIT where they have to distribute 90% plus of their basically net income to shareholders. Maybe it's something like that. But just understand, if you ever see a dividend yield over 6%, usually it might be something funny going on there. Maybe the company's paying out way too much. Maybe the stock price has gone down so much because people just don't believe in the company anymore. Just be a little cautious. Doesn't mean you can't invest ever in a stock that has a 6% plus dividend yield. Just be very cautious. Be very, look into the company very deeply. You should always do that with all companies, but especially if you see a yield over 6%, okay? So at a 4% yield, you got $250,000 in that stock. You're making $10,000 a year just in dividend payments, right? Beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, on the flip side, if you got $25,000 and you get that same 4% yield, you're making $1,000 per year. So the moral of this story here is if you're trying to do it just off dividends, you need big capital. That's just the bottom line. Like dividends are not gonna really get you where you wanna go unless you already got tons of money behind you, okay? I realized that in the stock market very early on. I was like, in my first $1,000 I invested in the market, right? I definitely picked some dividend stocks and I would calculate the yield and then I'd be like, oh man, this is gonna take a really long time to get where I wanna go, investing in dividend stocks and trying to collect this 2% yield here and this 3% yield here, 4% yield. When you have smaller amounts of money, it's tough, guys. It's really, really tough to make it off dividends. So that's why all of a sudden, as soon as pretty much 2010 hit, I started focusing on man, I got to get in some stocks that have some real upside opportunity in terms of the stock price going up. Because this whole, just going to collect dividends that I was doing my first year or two, it's a tough battle, right? Then you have this guy down here, right? This guy. 2.5 mil he puts that in this dividend stock at that 4% yield. He makes $100,000 a year for sitting on his butt investing in a dividend stock, okay? Man, that's nice, right? So this kind of shows you the power of money, essentially, right? This guy, all he has to do is put his 2.5 mil in his dividend stock, collect his 4% per year. He doesn't have to worry about trying to time out the market, take profits, anything like that. He's just in what he feels is a stable company. Maybe it's a Dow company or something like that. Collects his 4% a year, sits on his butt, makes $100,000 a year for basically doing a whole lot of nothing, right? You might have looked into the company, spent a little time researching the company, maybe spent 5, 10, 15, 20 hours doing that, and yet he makes $100,000 a year, not even accounting for if the stock went up or anything like that. Just sitting on his butt, doing absolutely nothing. And a lot of people would love to get a job that pays $100,000 a year, right? A lot of folks out there would love a job that pays $100,000. This guy just invests in a dividend stock. He's like, $100,000, give me it, So the moral of this story is, the rich get richer, okay? You probably heard that term before. It is absolutely true. The more money you have behind you, the less you have to stress about gains, although unless you're really trying to push up to huge numbers or something like that. I mean, this is a perfect example, right? The more capital you have behind you, the easier and easier these numbers get to be achievable, right? Where you can start making 6 figures a year from the stock market, 7 figures a year from the stock market, right? The more money you have behind you. And the other thing I would say, get after it young, man. Young is key in this. Get like 18 to 28. I mean, a very important age. If you can really, bust your butt, make decent money, save a lot of money, and invest that money out there, you're going to put yourself up in a very good situation. When I was 18 years old, I had probably $1,000 to my name in total, right? By the time I was 28, I was a millionaire. And I was just a grind, man. And it was a grind to hit that $10,000 mark, then that $100,000 mark, then $250,000, then $500,000, then finally a millionaire, right? And it's just a constant climbing. You got to try not to take any steps back. It takes some time. It takes a lot of work. There's no doubt about that, right? But you can absolutely get there. And I would say, put it in young, right? Now, if you're a little older and you're watching this, maybe you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, there's definitely still time on your side, okay? It's just not as attractive as if you're 18 or 20 or something like that. But the good news is, for a lot of folks that might be watching this and are 35, 45, 55 years old, you might have a good chunk of change behind you right now, which is nice. The one thing I would say that is scary for folks like that, right? Imagine you have $150,000 sitting in a savings account and you're like, stock market looks pretty darn attractive. I'm getting nothing on my savings account. That's a great thought to have. However, if you don't know what you're doing in the market, that can be horrible. Just absolutely horrible. If you don't know what you're doing in the market and you don't really know what you're looking for in stocks, you don't know how to value companies, you don't know how to judge financials, you don't know what to look for in research reports, okay, that's a bad situation. Don't get in that situation because, I would hate to see somebody enter the market. They have been saving money and then they think they're going to all of a sudden be a professional stock picker or something like that. And they don't really know what they're looking for. They put their 150K in. Next thing you know, 150K is now 80K, right? It happens to folks sometimes in the market. You don't want to be in that crowd, okay? So that covers that, right? Now, think about it this way, right? $10,000. Let's say you have $10,000. You've researched a stock you love, you invest in that stock, all $10,000, let's say, whether that's all the money you have or whether that's just part of the money, right? Usually it's a little dangerous to go all in a stock. I wouldn't usually suggest it. However, some people do it, right? So let's say you put $10,000 into a stock and you buy it at, let's say, $20. That stock goes to $40. It doubles up, right? Boom, you got your $10,000 profit, right? Now, of course, it's kind of $10,000 profit because do keep in mind, you take that $10,000 gain on that stock, the tax man does want his cut. And pretty much just about anywhere in the world you are at, the tax man is likely gonna want his cut, okay? So there's something important to factor in there that, all these gains, you gotta always factor in Mr. Tax Man. Always wants his cut, okay? So right there, just a double up of a stock. I mean, it's not easy to find double up stocks, but I would also say it's not like some rocket scientist. You need to be a rocket scientist or the smartest investor ever to find a double up stock, okay? It is definitely possible. Every single year in the stock market, I probably know of 20, 30, 40 stocks just off the top of my head that double up in a given year, right? And I can tell you, I don't know of all the stocks in the stock market. I would say there's probably in any given year, that's just a decent year in the market, there's probably over 100 stocks that basically from wherever they bottomed at to wherever they topped at was up over 100% in a given year. So just keep in mind, if you find a stock that can double up, good job. It's not like this is the hardest thing in the world, but at the same time, it's not the easiest thing in the world, okay? So that I will say about that. Now, let's say you got $40,000. You put $40,000 into a stock. You buy that stock at $20. The stock goes to $25, right? So cool, you made 25% gain on that. You take your profit, boom, you're at $10,000 made there, right? Still, we got to talk about tax man there, right? But you've made $10,000. Awesome. The moral of this story here is you don't need crazy money. You don't need crazy money to reach $10,000 plus a year in profits. That's just a bottom line. $40,000 is not crazy money, okay? 2.5 mil, okay, now we're talking, right? You got 2.5 mil to put in a stock, you're in the 1%, right? You got 40K to put in a stock, you're not even remotely close to 1%, right? You're like that's a good starting number, right? So you don't need crazy money to essentially make $10,000 plus a year. Very, very important. And honestly, you don't need crazy gains to make $10,000 plus a year. Remember this situation. 40,000 gets a 25% gain. That's a very good, respectable gain. I'm telling you, that's not like, oh my gosh, you're the best investor ever. If you can get that over time, year in and year out, okay, now we're really talking, right? But like, that's definitely not impossible to get a number like that, right? And so we're not talking about you need to get some 200, 300% gain or something like that, right? Like sometimes you hear these stories about somebody became a millionaire on some stock or some, crypto or something like that. Keep in mind, those are sometimes few and far between. You don't need to be that person to rack up, 5 figures a year in the stock market. Let's just put it that way, okay? Now, to make $10,000 plus a year from stocks, I want you to keep some things in mind here, right? The first thing is early better. This is important on 2 factors. One is we talked about age being the younger you get rolling in this, the better off you're going to be, right? It's much better to get rolling at this when you're 19 years old than when you're 59 years old. Absolutely, okay? Also, when I say early better, that also means it's better to get in early to stocks before Wall Street has already gotten in that stock fully, right? You can get in the hype stock, but keep in mind the hype stock is already hyped. It's already talked about everywhere. If you're seeing it all over CNBC, Bloomberg, and all the other publications, right? It's probably there for a reason. It's probably there for a reason, and it's probably just a matter of time before the hype starts fading. When the hype starts fading, usually what ends up happening, the stock ends up starting to downtrend. You usually want to get in before other folks get in. Something I try to always do is beat the hedge funds to my stocks. Because whenever I invest in a stock, for the most part, I know Wall Street money is coming to that stock. The fund money, the hedge fund money, all that money is coming to that stock over time because the stock's going to have amazing underlying fundamentals. It's just a matter of time. And so I want to get in before Wall Street gets in. And that's where the true magic is, okay? Number 2, don't be crazy in the market. I know it's attractive to hear that story about the guy that became an overnight millionaire in some option. You heard about it on Wall Street Bets or CNBC. You heard some guy became a millionaire in this crypto, this stock, whatever, right? Some crazy, you don't have to do that to start raking in some real big money in the stock market. I can just promise you that. You stay focused, you stay disciplined, you stay doing you, right? You don't have to be a complete maniac, essentially, to make some money in the stock market. And keep in mind, for every one story you hear about somebody made some crazy money on some option and they put into this option, and it's like, for every one story you hear about that, there's 1,000 stories of somebody that tried a crazy strategy like that and failed, okay? No different than out here. I live in Las Vegas, if you didn't know, right? I think that probably gives it away, but I live in Las Vegas. And here in Las Vegas, every once in a while you hear about somebody hit some huge jackpot on the slot machine. Oh my gosh, they hit the windfall for $2.5 million, and it's like, oh my gosh, oh they hit that slot machine 3.7 mil. Somebody over here just won $250,000 on that slot machine, and you hear about it, right? Sometimes that casino will even put up a billboard. You'll see it on Google. You go on to Google and it's like in your face, right? For every one of those stories, there's a whole lot of people in that casino that aren't that person, that are losing money. Those things, they didn't build themselves, I can promise you that, okay? And so this is something to keep in mind. You don't have to be crazy aggressive to start making really good money in the stock market, okay? Number 3, remember, this is very, very possible. If you're talking about making 5 figures or more a year from the stock market, it is very, very possible. This is not some impossible thing that is like, oh my gosh, I need to have like millions of dollars to do that, right? Or I need to get like lucky, like the guy that goes crazy on some call options and all of a sudden makes a ton of money, right? No, you don't need to have a ton of money, and you don't need to be in a situation where you take some crazy risk or something like that, okay? It is absolutely very possible. Number 4, very key in this, watch the backwards game. What do I mean by the backwards game? What I'm talking about there is essentially a situation where you get into bad stocks and you lose money. This is why it's very important to know what you're looking for. Know how to look at the fundamentals of a company and judge a company, right? Know how to read the financial statements, the balance sheet, the income statement, all those things, right? Understand valuations. So many people don't understand valuations. You need to understand all these things, how all these things work, so you don't put yourself into a backwards game. or put yourself into too much of a risky situation. I put myself into a much too risky of a situation back in 2015. Kind of started toward the end of 2014, but into 2015 went crazy heavy on margin and started doing some crazy earnings trades and things like that, right? And next thing you know, I lost money in that year. I made so much money year after year after year. All of a sudden I completely go off the rails and I start doing all these earnings trades. Next thing you know, I lose like $75,000 that year, okay? And that was like shocking to me. That was like a big like, wake up, Jeremy, like what the heck are you doing, man? You're no longer investing, you're gambling. And you're losing, okay? And so this is very, very key to keep in mind, because then I had to fight for the next 1 to 2 years to get back to where I was previously and then start building from there. You don't want to put yourself into that situation, right? Watch the backwards game. Also, next thing up here, right? Build out an all-around GVD portfolio, in my opinion, okay? Something I try to do is I try to use a GVD strategy. What is a GVD strategy? Well, growth, value, dividends. I like to have a combination of those sorts of stocks in my portfolio, meaning I want some stocks that have some huge upside potential. So a stock I got in a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, was Tesla. And that was a growth stock for me, and it did unbelievable, right? Planet 13, a stock that has done amazing for me, growth stock. Upwork, a stock that we have ridiculous gains in, right? Because it was a growth stock. Revolve, some of those stocks, growth stocks. I also like to have some value stocks around, like a Nordstrom, like a Wynn Resorts. Some of those companies can be some phenomenal gainers as well. And then I like to have some dividend stocks around as well, right? Like a Foot Locker and some of those other that pay you out some nice dividend money that you can collect, a Walgreens, Boots Alliance, WBA, some of those stocks. And so I like to implement this GVD strategy. I'm always going to be a little heavier toward growth stocks because I like to take a little, I'm willing to take a little more risk, but I love to find a good value stock and I love a good dividend stock as well. I appreciate the whole game and building out that overall portfolio that I can be very proud of, and I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm in many different stocks across many different industries. I might be in one stock over here that has a forward P of 150. But that stock has crazy growth, revenue growth ahead of it over the next 5-10 years. And I might be investing in another stock that has a forward P of 8. But that stock is obviously, limited upside, right? But it might be a sweet dividend payer, and it might be undervalued. It might be deserve to be at a forward P of 14 or 16 or something like that, right? So the GVD strategy, I implement that. It's very, very important. I actually have a whole video that goes into GVD 1, 2, 3 strategy, okay? Here is the last one, okay? And this was one my dad used to always tell me back in the day, and I never really understood it for the most part. He says, you are who you hang around with. You are who you hang around with. And I always remember him telling me that, and it's actually really, really true. And if you want to have more and more success in the market, it is important to get around other folks that are already at where you're trying to go, or maybe even way above where you're at right now. Very, very key. I never really understood this till I've gotten older and I matured a bit. Back in the day, I used to think, I don't need anybody. I don't need to be around anybody. I'm just gonna be by myself. And what I've found time and time again is getting around the right people is so important. For instance, we got a show called Millennial Money, right? It's Andre Jick and Graham Stephan and me, Kevin and me. And I enjoy that show so much. I think it's so much fun. Not just because I love talking and giving my opinion versus their opinion and debating stuff, right? But it's also, 3 guys that have had a tremendous amount of success on YouTube, which I appreciate and I respect because I've done YouTube for many years, right? Guys that have a lot of money and have a lot of wisdom on different subjects. And so I love to kind of, debate back and forth. It's a lot of fun for me. And so it's about getting into these sorts of groups that, you have an opportunity to learn a lot from other people. And in my private stock group, we've put together a group in there that is unmatched. I mean, we're talking about between 300 and 500 people that have 6 figures plus in the market. We're talking about over 100 people now that have a minimum of $1 million in the stock market, all inside the private Discord chat. And that is just like, it's amazing to go in there and see everybody talking about different stocks and this stock and this stock, and people, hey, I'm investing in this one, hey, I'm looking into this one. That's like a magical experience, and that's something like I never had my first like 10 years of being in the market. It wasn't until I started my private stock group, and then a year or 2 later started the private Discord chat. And so now I'm surrounding myself with all these other very, very successful investors. Some have 10 million plus in the market. We're talking 8 figures plus just in stocks. We're not talking net worth, we're talking just in stocks. stocks. And so it takes me out of this situation where it was just me back in the day to now I'm surrounding myself with a ton of other super, high level investors. And that's really important. And honestly, I'm getting 75 to 80% plus of my stock picks from that private Discord chat. In terms of the spark of the idea, I'm getting it from that Discord chat because it's amazing. There's so many phenomenal investors. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with folks like that, right? If you can find something in your town or your city where there's a lot of very intelligent investors, try to be part of those clubs or things like that, right? If you can find online communities like that, then definitely, try to join those online communities where, there's a ton of, very intelligent investors and things like that. If you're looking to join us in the private stock group, the private Discord chat, all those sorts of things, check out the pinned comment down there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video as always, and I hope you learned a little bit, and I hope you got a little bit of a change of perspective. This is definitely very possible for you to make 5 figures plus a year in the stock market. Thank you for watching and have a great day.